GettingPositiveKarmaNow.com presents Bhagavad Gita for All, lectures by Nalan K. Narula, recorded in front of a live audience.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Last time we had done up to text 15, chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita. So today we will start with just a continuity from 15. And the 15th text was Yunjanevam Sada Atmanam Yogi Niyata Manasa Shantim Nirvana Paramam Mat Sanstham Adhigacchati. Yunjanevam Sada Atmanam Yogi Niyata Manasa. So practicing this yoga, focusing the mind, the Atmanam, mind, body and soul, on Krishna, on the divine, on the Atma as well as the super soul, the Paramatma. The mystic Niyata Manasa, with a regulated mind, he attains Shanti, Shantim, Nirvana Paramam, and also the end of material existence. Mat Sanstham Adhigacchati. He goes to the spiritual sky. Now we had explained last time the spiritual sky is the effulgence, the Brahma energy, the radiance of the divine. And that is to the moksha point. Okay. So the understanding for healers is that you are actually at this point already by the fact of your attunement. And that is because you are connected to those Brahma energies, which takes you to the moksha point. Moksha means cessation of material activity, which is nothing other than cessation of binding consequence karma. So you are already there at that particular point. That your starting point is this. The other things may or may not be there. You may not be qualified in terms of the other things that have been spoken about. But gradually you will come to that point through the dint of your practice. So this is very significant understanding to keep in mind, that this is your starting point. You already have that starting point. When you are connected to the Brahma energies, this is what it means. You become free of the binding consequence karma cycles. In other words, you are liberated from material existence, moksha. But moksha is just the beginning. It is only the starting point of getting to your end point of going to the spiritual sky, beyond the sky into the zones of the spiritual planets, and so on. So that will come up later. So this is the preliminary stage. Now the thing is that you can do, this is all about Hatha Yoga. So there is Hatha Yoga, there is Jnana Yoga, there is Dhyan Yoga. All of these are very difficult to practice actually in Kali Yuga. Whereas Karma Yoga is very easy. So when you are connected to the Reiki or the KQ force healing energies, you are using them to heal your karma. So you are actually a karma yogi with this empowerment. So that is very important to keep in mind, that you are spiritualizing all your actions through these energies that emanate from the divine. If you look at the first text of Srimad Bhagavatam, text number 1, and that is Janmadi Asya Yato Anvayad Itartash Chatur Shiva Chartheshvu abhigyana swarat, and so on, that janmadi asayatyo, that the whole of creation, destruction of the manifest universe, yatha, from whom it is directly emanating, anvayat, itarata, and indirectly also, directly and indirectly, and that is who we are to meditate on. And of course, the first part of this shlok is what we chant every day in the Bhagavad Gita class, which is Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya means that I am offering my obeisances to the one who is the source of all sources. Why am I offering him obeisances? Because that is the source of everything that exists directly or indirectly. So basically the understanding is that when I am connected to these healing energies, I am working with the energies of the divine, and I am beginning to focus, and I am going to be liberated from the binding consequences of karma, moksha. And moksha is actually the first step towards deeper connection or communication with Krishna. That comes after that. So one can overcome the cycles of birth and death only by understanding and connecting with Krishna. That is the statement of all the scriptures. Without even interpretation, just if you take the bare translation, that's what it means. It is not some kind of fanatic understanding or cultist understanding at all. It is as it speaks in the scriptures. Then we have text 16. Na ati ashnata tu yoga asti na ekantam arashnata na cha ati swapnashilasya jagrata na eva cha Arjuna. Na ati ashnata tu yoga, one who eats too much, there is no possibility of becoming linked to Krishna or becoming a yogi. Yogi means linking to Krishna. Asti nacha ekantam, one who sleeps too much or too little, or who eats too much or eats too little. Anashnata na cha ati swapnashilasya jagrata, one who keeps awake too much, one who sleeps too much, swapnashilasya. None of these people will actually be able to connect with Krishna. So everything has to be done with regulation. So eating too much, sleeping too much, eating too little, eating too much. All these things, if one is not regulating, then there is no possibility of connecting to Krishna and becoming a yogi. So the types of food also have to be looked at. In chapter 3, in the 16th text, there was the text Bhunjate te tu agham papya, etc. That is that Bhunjate te tu agham papa ye pachanti atma karanat. So a person who is eating food not offered to the divine, not purified, not sanctified, is eating sinful reactions. So if he is cooking for himself, beginning, yes, you cook for yourself, but you offer to the divine, it removes the, you can say, the aberrations or the contaminations or the energies of greed and self-interest. In other words, it neutralizes them. So gradually it becomes, you become neutral towards all these things as well. So there are various injunctions given, and not eating too much, not sleeping too much, eating the right type of food. which means the food which is appropriate for a yogi, and certainly things like non-vegetarian food is not appropriate. So that is something that one needs to look at. Text 17 continues this exposition, which is yuktahara viharasya yukta cheshtasya karmasu yukta swapna avabodhasya yoga bhavati dukha yukta ahara viharasya yukta cheshtasya karmasu. So a person who is regulating his eating, he is regulating his viharasya, his recreation, entertainment, yukta, regulating his cheshtasya, one regulating his earning for maintenance, his maintenance procedure, whatever he does to maintain his life. Karmasu, discharging his duties. Yukta, he is regulated in that. He is regulated in swapna avabodhasya. He is regulated in sleeping and he is regulated in wakefulness. Yoga bhavati dukha, he becomes expert in the yoga system, and by that yoga system he becomes bhavati dukha, he experiences less and less material pains. The pangs of material existence start to reduce. So eating too much, eating too little, working too much, working too little, it has to be balanced adequately for the purpose that you are eventually focusing your life towards your final goal, which is to link to Krishna and go beyond the basic linking process which has been described here. So that was text 17. Then we have text 18. यदा वियनतं चित्तम आत्मनि एव अवतिष्ठते निष्प्रहा सर्वकामेभ्य युक्त इति उच्यते तदा. यदा विनियतं चित्तम, when with the practice of this discipline, chittam, the mind and its activities, atmani, that is the soul and the super soul, eva avitastate, becomes situated in the transcendental aspect, nishpraha, devoid of sarva kamebhya, material desires, devoid of material desires, such a person is yukta iti uchyate tada. It is stated that this person is now linked or have attained to the yoga practice. So this is something that requires work, that is requiring some regular connectivity. What has happened?
It's gone out. It's come back. Internet connection is.
Is it on now, the sound? You have the sound, everything? So in the previous text we had talked about that person who is achieving the impersonalist or the energy or the Brahma energy aspect connection. That was in the 15th text, and now the next evolution is being described in the 16th, 17th and 18th, that when the yogi, by practice of the yoga activities, he is disciplining his mind and he becomes situated in the transcendental aspect, devoid of material desires, he is said to have attained yoga at that time. So that is an important consideration, that it's a process, that you go to different levels. Sometimes you get stuck at the beginning level, and that's a problem, because then it is actually a losing game, because there is the trap for the false ego that I am become the divine. In other words, if you get stuck in the Brahm Jyoti, so a devotee or a healer doesn't get stuck there. He moves on beyond the aspect of thinking he's a controller, because he is now connecting to the supreme controller, and he understands their relative and absolute positions to some degree, and under guidance of the spiritual master he can progress like that. So that was the text 18. Now we will look at text 19. यथा दीप निवातास्था न इंगते सा उपमा स्मृत योगिना यथा चितस्य युञ्जत योगम आत्मना. यथा दीपा निवातास्था. So just as a lamp in a nivatastha, in a steady secluded place which has no wind, na ingate, does not waver, sa upama smrita yogina, so compared in a similar sense is the yogi who is likened to that lamp, whose yatachitasya, whose mind is controlled, yunjata, and constantly engaged in yoga meditation atmana, of the divine transcendence. So on the transcendental self. So the transcendental self is the Atma and the Paramatma. So the step is from the outer effulgence to the of the divine to the soul aspect, and then to the Paramatma aspect. So these are all different levels of the transcendental manifestation. The soul is a separated individual energy of the divine, from who is the source of everything, including the Brahma Jyoti, the glow, and the individual separated particles of the divine, the Jivatmas. So the Jivatma can never become the Paramatma, right? So that is very clear. So there are three things that have been discussed here: the Brahma Jyoti, the Atma, and the Paramatma. And just as a lamp in a secluded, sheltered place which has no wind, no disturbance, so does the transcendentalist, the yogi, whose mind is controlled. So that is the importance of controlling the mind, not to be wavering, and to give himself enough opportunity by balancing his eating, sleeping, living, lifestyle, discharging his duties, and so on. And before that, Krishna has mentioned that the unregulated sex life is also an impediment. So that is a impediment right at the beginning. So there has to be some regulation of all these things. So when a person remains steady in his meditation on the transcendental self, he actually becomes more and more connected, and the more and more connected comes when he gives up the desire for sense gratification, including the sexual desire, completely. So that has also been stated. Then we have text 20 to 23. Long four texts, one continuity of understanding. So we will read them and deal with it step by step. That is text 20 to 23 of chapter 6. Yatra uparamati chittam niruddham yoga sevaya yatra cha eva atmana atmanam pashyan atmani tushyati sukham atyantikam yat tat buddhi grahyam आर्तीन्द्रियाम वेत्ति यत्र न च एव अयम स्थिता चलति तत्वतः यम लब्ध्वा च aparam labham manyate na adhikam tatah yasmin sthitha na dukhena gurunapi vichalyate tam vidyat dukha sanyog viyogam yoga samyutam. Yatra uparamati, in that state of consciousness, uparamati chittam, when one is feeling the transcendental joy or happiness, because of niruddham, by yoga sevasya, by the performance of yoga, he has restrained the senses from going out towards material entanglement. Yatra cha eva atmana, then there also the purified mind, atmanam, the self, pashyan, realizing the position, atmani, in the self. So there is atmanam, that is the atmana is the mind, atmanam is the self, and atmani is the divine. Recognizing all these things, they become the mind becomes conscious of this. It becomes tushyati, becomes very satisfied, sukham, atyantikam, becomes very satisfied in the supreme atyantikam. Yat tat buddhi, and that in which the intelligence, grahyam atindriyam veti yatra. So the intelligence then grahyam knows or accepts, acknowledges. Atindriyam, the transcendental, veti, he knows this, veti means knows, yatra, wherein. Nacha eva ayam sthita chalati, then the mind is never distorted or disturbed from this, it does not move from this understanding. Tattvata, from this truth. Yam labdhva, by attaining which, cha aparam labham manyate na adhikam tata, that he does not think that other gains are greater. He relishes this only, and he is sthita, situated, chalati tattvata yam labdhva, by attaining this he is situated in this transcendental zone of joyousness. And na adhikam tata yasmin sthita na dukhena gurunapi vichalyati tam vidyat dukha samyog viyogam yoga samyutam. So he is not disturbed by that, and when he is situated in that, then by any kind of miseries, even though are very hard times, dukhena gurunapi, very difficult, dukhena, miseries, vichalyate, he does not become shaken, disturbed. Tam vidyat dukha samyoga viyogam yoga samyutam. So he is he's saying tam vidyat, you should know this knowledge, you should know this, that in that state the person is reached the point of freedom, of miseries arising from material contact. So being free from the miseries of material contact doesn't mean that the miseries will finish. It means that the person is detached from that. He is not shaken. That is the freedom, that you are not disturbed by what is happening around you, no matter how difficult a time you are facing. So that is a key consideration. It's not on. What is the network you are having? It should work.
It's working, but it keeps talking.
Maybe if you use a different finger, it might work. There's no sound?
Mm.
Hmm?
Are we connected to a number
Mm.
signal and NN house is also there? NN,
Is there sound?
I've asked them. They said no.
It's gone off here.
Oh, no, it got.
I said use a different finger. Huh? Okay. So, again, text 20 to 23, basically that when a person is in this state, and what is that state? That he is not wavering, just like a lamp in a windless place does not waver when the consciousness and his mind is controlled, and he is remaining steady in his meditation on the divine, connecting through the soul and then to the divine super soul. He is not disturbed. Then he achieves transcendental happiness, and then the mind knows this, the intelligence knows this, and once they know this, then they will become more and more steady. They do not deviate from this, no matter what is happening around them, because they are very joyous internally, and they are enjoying themselves through the spiritual senses or the spiritualized senses, and established like that, they do not depart from this truth, and they do not think that any other gains are greater than this one. So when you are situated in that situation, when you are situated in that position, you are not shaken, even in the midst of dukhena guranapi, the most difficult and most troublesome of miserable conditions. You don't become vichalyate, you're not shaken by that, and you should know that this is actually the freedom from miseries when you are in the yoga samyitam, when you are in the yogic connection, in a transcendental connection. So that is the extermination of yoga, means the destruction of dukkha, samyog, destruction of miseries that come from the contact with material nature. So you're in contact with material nature, but your senses, if they are restrained and they are not being disturbed by what is happening in the material nature, then you are in the yogic trance or the transcendental situation, and freedom from miseries arising from material contact. So this is stage 1, where no matter what is happening externally, you are not disturbed. You continue to do your healing, you continue to channel the energy, you continue to connect with the universal life force energy of the divine, and through that connection you are becoming more and more fixed in the transcendental self, and you are not disturbed. So when we say you are not disturbed, it is a process that you will get there through this constant meditative practice on the divine, by focusing on the healing energy, by focusing on Krishna. And when you are connecting with that inner source of joy which is there available to you through your initiated connection with Reiki, the KQ force, you are able to connect with that source of joy, then you are not disturbed, even in the midst of greatest of difficulty. So this is considered to be actual freedom while being in the material world, actual freedom from material miseries arising from material contact. So even though we can look at it another way, that even though like a lotus leaf is in mud and water, it is still above it, and even if it touches it, it is not touched by it because it is waterproof in that sense. So you waterproof yourself from material contact by connecting with the divine, and those things don't affect you. Yes, there will be times when they will and they won't, but it's a matter of practice. So we are talking about, Krishna is talking about that steady state, that when a person is in that steady state, he is not vichalyate, he is not disturbed, just as a lamp, yatha deepa nivastata, na ingate sa upama smrita yogina, yata chittasya yunjata yogam atmana. So when is focused on the divine atmana, on the transcendental self, then the mind is not wavering. The mind is controlled. Yata chittasya. So that is the whole purpose of the Ashtanga Yoga, is to control the mind, and the process has been explained by Krishna quite clearly to Arjuna, that in that connecting of the joyous state within, you become steady. So he's given the rules how to achieve that joyous state, how to get to that point through the transcendental, experience the transcendental joy and happiness. And once the mind and the intelligence, the man and the buddhi, the chetana and the buddhi are established, there's a matter of being established. It's not that you go there, touch it, come back. That is happening a lot. You go there, you touch it for a while, you're like that, but it's not established on a fixed basis or a permanent basis. So once it starts to become established more and more, then it becomes steady. There is initially wavering, and then there is steadiness, and then the mind doesn't go this way, that way. No matter what is happening, you're dealing with the situation. So a person does not eat too much, he does not sleep too much, he does not work too much, he does not work too little. He fulfills his obligations, he fulfills his karmic duties. He does what he has to do to maintain his life, not excessively endeavoring and not under endeavoring. So there is a balance happening. And when he is understanding that what is the real purpose of his life, he can easily do this. But when he doesn't understand the real purpose of life, then he is deviated by all relative material considerations. So this is where we will pause today at text 23 of the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And if there are any questions, I will take some questions now.
So in today's session, we mostly talked about regulated. Everything is regulated.
Yes.
For it to be better.
Right.
Balanced.
Right.
When we're doing our healing, we talk about balancing the chakras and all stuff. Does that kind of correlate the two?
Well, not exactly. That is a specific procedure to harmonize your energies, but here the balance is different. We are talking about, Krishna is talking about regulating your life in ways other than whatever process you're using. He's talking about not sleeping too much, not sleeping too little, doing what is needed to earn your living, to maintain yourself, having a reasonable, regulated, not reasonable, a regulated amount of entertainment, whatever it is, recreation, doing what you need to do to fulfill your obligations karmically, your duties. So all of this requires education, because if people are not clear, what is my duty, what is too much, what is too little. So clearly, I mean, we have discussed this. Sleep requirement is between, say, 7 to 9 hours a day. For children, it is a lot more. For growing kids, for teenagers, it is even up to 12 hours a day. Medically, that is established, that is how much sleep they need, and that is their normal sleep cycle. An infant is sleeping like 16, 18 hours a day, should be, in the beginning, to because the growth hormones are released during that sleep and so on. But that science comes later. So the natural cycle is this, and science may explain to you why you should do it if you're not doing it. And we are not doing it because we are distracted by so many external considerations. So people would go to sleep at a reasonable hour and get up at a, sleep 8-9 hours and get up in the morning and go to work and everything. But that all has changed because now the sun is not a guide for us when to go to sleep or when to rise. Because we have electricity, we have so many other things, and we can create our day at night time. Like that. So, regulation in terms of your overall life, not just limited to your healing practice. So, balance there. So, is not even talking about balance. The word is used is not balance, but regulation. Yeah. Because balance, everybody has a different idea of what is balance. So, regulative rules have been given, principles have been given, and you follow those principles. Earlier it is said, all these principles are there, that if you eat the wrong kind of food, you will be in trouble. If you do not purify or sanctify the food by offering it to the divine, you are going to be in trouble. So once you get past those hurdles, as healers, if you are healing all that you do, including your eating and your daily activities, you will come to the point that you can actually understand and work with this. One process is that you have no knowledge, you don't know anything about this, you are just doing your healing and you are maintaining yourself, and then you are still being troubled because there is a lack of education. So in all spiritual practices, it is not just the practice alone, it is the education. So education is very important, even materially and spiritually. So the simple understanding is, you do your Reiki, you do your healing, these are the 31 point positions, these are the methods, you do it, focus on it, these are the 5 principles. The 5 principles are actually can expand into all the understanding of the Bhagavad Gita as we have talked about. Because those 5 principles touch those points which are very, very important in order to get to the transcendental point of being established in yoga with the divine. So there needs to be an expansion of those. There needs to be an expanded understanding of those, actually. Shamli, you had some? Got clear? Okay. Any other questions?
So, education is extremely important when it comes to
education is absolutely extremely important.
And that's why
the guru is needed. I mean, you can go and study it on your own. I was discussing with somebody the other day, and they were talking about how Krishna consciousness is basically a big marketing job only. And I was just wondering, this person is doing self-study. So with the problem with self-study is that, they don't understand this. What does it mean? They claim to have studied all the scriptures. So I just reminded them, go back to the first shloka of the Bhagavatam. Janmadi yatasya. Who is it talking about? It's only about Krishna. I said, forget the commentaries, forget everything else. When it is being established again and again in different scriptures which are correlating that Krishna is the Supreme, how can you say it's a marketing job for Krishna? I mean, he is considered to be the source of all sources. Now, if somebody is saying he is the source of all sources, quoting the scriptures, what is he marketing? He's just repeating. That's the way things are. That's the way it is. I mean, you cannot read the whole thing, which is with the. If you remove the central core of it, there's nothing left. If you say, no, I don't accept the fact that Krishna is supreme, you don't know anything then. You're ignorant. You're studying the literature and saying, I take what suits me. It doesn't suit me to understand that Krishna is the supreme. Well, then you forget it. You're nowhere. The other way is you be ignorant. Even as a healer, if you don't have this knowledge, you can be ignorant. You can think anybody is supreme. As long as you're doing the healing, you're fine. The moment you drop away from the healing, you're not going to be fine. So therefore this knowledge is important to understand that who is the source of Reiki, who is the source of the KQ force. It is Krishna only. There is no compromise on that understanding. You may like it, you don't like it. You don't want to think of it, that's fine. Do your healing. You'll come up to the impersonalist level. You're working with the Brahma energies, you'll come up to whatever is available to you in the Brahma energy platform. And then your ego grows. I can do this, I can channel healing, I can get anything I want. No, that is arrogance that comes from thinking I am the divine. I am as good as the divine. No, you're not at all anywhere there. You're a servant of the divine. You are a servant of the inferior energies of the divine, which is the material universe. In the first shloka it says, through Krishna only the demigods are put into illusion, and even the sages are put into illusion. What to speak of anyone else? Through his energies, he puts you into illusion, or he gives you enlightenment. Depends if you're ready. You have to be ready. So this is the way to be ready. Regulate yourself, have this understanding, and if you approach the topic of God consciousness, Krishna consciousness, with respect, with humility, not thinking, I know, I am a great scholar, I have studied these things. Illusion doesn't care for great scholars. So this is, you cannot have a theoretical scholarly understanding of spiritualism that is going to help you. It's not at all going to help you. So there is Jnana and Vijnana. Acquired knowledge and then experiential knowledge. Directly touched. So both are important. So acquired knowledge is one aspect, but where do you acquire it from? If you are doing your own self-study and thinking, I'm a genius, I don't agree with this, I don't agree with that, you have not understood anything because there's nobody to clarify your doubts. You are using your own biases to confirm. There's a confirmatory bias. So that is ridiculous. You cannot expect to understand it that way. So even if you read a book where the person has explained fairly clearly, you will have some doubts and questions which are not cleared in that particular segment that you are reading. So you can get confused. So it is advised even that you should study under the guidance of a person who knows, who's seen, who's been there. And if you're saying, no, I am, will do my self-study, fine. That's going to take you only up to a point. But you will be in illusion for sure. That's absolutely clear. Any other questions anyone has? Okay. So then we'll conclude at text 23, chapter 6 of the Bhagavad Gita. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 You've been listening to Nalin K. Narula on GettingPositiveKarmaNow.com.